By the teachings of the three spirituals, the lesson of power, truth, may inner and outer universes be transformed, may it be settled, may it be pacified, victorious. May all negative forces opposed to the harmony completely pacified, may the whole state of the also be pacified, and may liberty
sorry.
separated from and may it be a speech spirit and as they have you here right now.
Sorry. Doing everything I can to confuse the people.
Sanji Chalan Soki Cholanga Chacho Badu Dami Kapsu Dagi Chushi Gide Sono Dola Beshe Sanji Choba Shu Sanji Chalan Soki Cholanga Chacho Badu Dami Kapsu Dagi Chushi Gide Sono Dola Beshe Sanji Choba Shu Sanji Cholan Soki Cholanga Chacho Badu Dami Kapsu Dagi Chushi Gide Sono Dola Beshe Sanji Choba Shu Kangi Tuzini Zone Tawa Tonji Pambi Chere Tambi Chun Dunzi Kodun Kela Chanze Lo Good morning everyone. Hello.
No cramping it.
J'ai job with that.
No.
Looks very like the same.
Okay.
Brother and his daughter. Right.
All right. So you're totally outed now.
Can Pumudang and Robert Church you.
So you've been to Dhamma teachings before, or is it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Have you been here before? Because the face is familiar. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. When you were. So how do you find it? Do you relate to it?
I think I stray a lot from
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and it's nice to just be reminded that it's here.
Mm-hmm.
Return to it that I should.
제가 그럼 너 신주가 들라디 테스 콘유로와 네딘데 네 출라 도나마체네 로 오스카로 도선 사치 산타나 테스 도나 테스 스테디 예사
그냥 앙클 베마스 차야 보레스라 오늘 베마스 차야 보 은치 네든 뭐마디 그 심바 점마세 라는 땅이 체제에서 이제는 까까들이야 진짜 앙클 주니 우체도래 계시듯이 괜지 저티야 말아와이네야 코나리야 내든 쪼도 생각하지 참잖아 공산팀니까 제시자로 슬라바나 근데 저는 편통을했어
Uncle Tony. It's funny to say that, Uncle Tony. So, Uncle Tony is an exceptional monk, Geshe says. Not only knows a lot, but also is a practitioner. as a good practitioner. So, if you have any questions in the future, Geshe reckons that Tony is an invaluable source just for questions or discussions. Even if you don't have anything in particular, it's just kind of a really valuable person to have a Dhamma discussion with.
나도 미망제 소수 빙빙제다 소수 대화 인바이나 엔직 자와 있는 가리는 야 가주 센텐지 인바이나 대장 통샤 투여 말이스 그래서 미기 로당로 저래도 왔어 디페 디페 마시바 아니 단대디는 먼저 직시에 대 레로셋 차도 왔어 이게 얘들은 막 셰디 먼저 따지 Geshe Marmingo Tangio Marcy Lagoras, thinking Calvin Saudi Master, and then Lord Troop House Drosso. Yes, same thing could teach us a chick and in Kena Uncle Chagius. When the Toya push some that Naraman did that's the years.
So when you have someone in your family that is a monk or a nun, Geshe reckons that it's hard to also, even if you're really good monastics, it's hard to also separate that from knowing that they're your brother or cousin or uncle and so forth. So there's also a sense of relying upon that person as your family member rather than just looking at them as an excellent monk or nun, which is, Geshe says that those habits that we've acquired are part of what we're looking at here in the 7th chapter of Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life. And now we're looking at the way to rid yourself of laziness, right? So laziness, for example, in terms of bad habits. Anyway, if we have such family members, such as Uncle Tony, which we can ask questions, rely upon, have kind of Dhamma discussions, Geshe reckons that it's an excellent resource to use.
그래서 다들이 먼저 자왕 인생 길레로 세티 이거 자왕 인생 길레로 빵바세 레로 세디 돌아야 계시셔바니 지단 길레로 세디 먼저 다 남주 직된 비초네게 레로 문제제 지단 안직피기 타와드 탐진 kim비 공부 견딘 얘기게 간지 아니 남친 냠슬랭이 지문에 아니 레로스 쓰당기 더 총이 연구였어. 나디 연구도 왔어. 그래서 딱 얘기 더 직대 비춰기디 레로디 당가 레로 차우 쉬우지 인기랬어. 띵이 시행면서 나랑 레로디 쉬우지 하는데 띵이 레로레스 라이면서 소쇼디 이 레로츠 데서 추쇼는 레로츠 데서디 이 모드직 쉬나스라.
Having said that, let's go back to the text and pick up from the point that we left off in the previous session. So, as we said, we're looking at the 7th chapter in Shantideva's text. And currently in the 7th chapter that teaches the way to undertake joyous effort, we have been looking at what is incongruous with joyous effort, which is laziness. So laziness, we're going to pick up today from verse 15 that comes under the heading of abandoning the laziness that clings to unwholesome activities or to ignoble activities. So laziness is understood in a particular way in a mundane, from a mundane perspective, a worldly perspective. But there is also another type of laziness that we speak of when we practice the stages that lead to liberation and the state of enlightenment, which is the laziness that prevents you from doing what you need to do in order to attain the state of liberation and enlightenment, right? So in that sense, we have two types of laziness, the worldly types of laziness and laziness in terms of our dhammic activities. So Geshe says that looking at himself is not going to discuss the way that he's lazy from a worldly perspective. Let's leave that aside. Now, worldly laziness, he says I'm going to leave that aside. Let's look at the type of Dhamma laziness, the one that prevents you from doing what you need to do in terms of attaining the state of liberation and enlightenment. We also have that.
Now, this is that 최종 시행이 멜로디 취민기 자와를 주버디 간지 취민기 자와를야 주버디 더 레로 lelo dushi dires, the lelo dires.
So that in terms of Dhamma, this laziness that is attracted to ignoble activities, it is the one in which you become totally attached to worldly activities, or this is to say to non-dhammic activities. So when you have this strong clinging, adherence to non-dhammic activities from the viewpoint of laziness in relation to our dhammic activities, this is the worst type of laziness.
That swimming chaval jukwas labaina, Kandajla Kogo is laundi, Penangandu Chawa Kari Chebaina, Ani Chip Chabakia, Ani Shadan Kia, Ani Tagdor Kia, Jansom Kia, that Gula Drogi Chamamu Yungudas, the Sama law, Ani Chujon Song Tambaina, and Leloris, Chu Chavalaya, Gorgenchi, and Swimming Chavalaya, Jukro, the Leloris, right?
So what do we mean when we say that we engage in non-dhammic activities? From the viewpoint of the Dhamma, when we look at states of mind that operate in a mind stream, anger and attachment and jealousy and competitiveness and so forth, when they arise in our mind, they stop a Dhamma practice. So in that sense, when we look at those states of mind, anger, attachment, jealousy, competitiveness, and so forth, we can also classify them in this group of lazy attitudes.
Derida di jedang dangang chuchedi ngone china ani pi chadang monsum god ne talaya chadang monsum ani sebi talaya 뽕비 탈래야 로고 요라스 이네 까우까우야 나는 추 징인 중문이 양 아니 추디 아니 추명기 자발이야 주기 주소리지 아니 땅야기 까우까우야 닝가 용도서 대주페 마스바더니 탑교 아니 냥가 차고 다 딘지기 아니 추기 낀치니 추명 촐래야 주도 요바나 다 디세야기 탑 메주르지 로 Chitangi Chumichoki Chawadi and Chu Chini said to get Yoros Bena. In that Chu Nyami Chioti, Kenny, Digi, and Chadamos Peg, Julian, Tambaina, that this egg Tamegurich is a Peningasouch. Dindichik Chagores.
So we need to put a stop to our anger and attachment and so forth. Sometimes when we practice Dhamma, certain states of mind arise in our mind. Even when we practice the Dhamma, it is possible that then our mind falls prey to anger, attachment, and so forth, which means that at this point, our Dhamma practice becomes non-Dhamma. And this is what we need to stop for. If we do allow that to happen, it means that our Dhamma practice will not be able to eliminate our afflictive states of mind. If we allow our Dhamma practice to become non-Dhammic practice, we will not be able to eliminate our afflictive states of mind. So this is what we need to stop. So having said that, let's look at verse 15. Having rejected the supreme joy of the sacred Dhamma, that is an infinite cause of joy, why do you enjoy being distracted by the causes for suffering, frivolous amusements, and the like? As we're using a commentary to Shantideva's text, it says, having abandoned the supreme joy in practicing the infinite methods of the Holy Dhamma, which are the causes for all the happiness of this and future lives. Why do you like unsuitable actions resulting in suffering, such as negativities, the distractions of many different thrills, mental excitement, and so forth? It is unsuitable to like them because they are causes for suffering.
That's the Gavi Gilia Taiba, Gavi Gu, Ra, Ajik Negavki Gawa, Pigi Semiyaman Sobota, and Taduki Gawa, and Deva Chok, and Tayu Komba, Tamjin Komba to Gila Sobo, Mambu Yabinano, that Gavi give Chok to Kivadi, and Che, any church of this, or deep pani, and Dungar Vigu, Pigi, and Chow Main Balaya. In Yaman Juba, and any Chabatan, Goba Solaya, Tindi, Chiki Samian and Gavatilea, and Charan Kachin Gavachigis. Gav Versaj in the Mara, deep of Charanea, Dumayungur Mado, and Devayungumaris.
Shantideva in verse 15 looks at the things that causes joy and happiness. And he says that you can look at it on two levels. There are the things that cause us temporary joy, temporary happiness, but also there are things that cause us long-term happiness and joy. Like, for example, the things that produce the state of liberation, a state that will give us long-term happiness and joy. So looking at the temporary level and the ultimate level is supreme, is the best. Why then do we relinquish the best and just suffice with short-term pleasure or joy? Why are we attached to temporary joy and completely give up the ultimate one? This is unsuitable when we get attachment to a sense of distraction, to excitation, and so forth, which only produce temporary joy.
Nanzukam digi, Dunga Gu, Iwan, Gobala Soba, and it's Chadan Soba, but Dunga Guri Setiati, Dunga di, Dungalaya, Rigni Chichini, so Sem Dungalaya, Kogo Dasra, Nanzu Ludi, that Nega will lose some Kunimachilia, Jiva Nega will lose the Nega will lose Tigi, David Gudi, Nega will develop some remote Tig. Tartulaya, Monzalia, they were treated to a Mavachik. Chang the Kam Digi, Dunga Guchar said, so Sam Dunga, Sam Makiva Yoya, but Dimjila Soba, and Sungures Ra.
When verse 15 says, having rejected the supreme joy of the sacred Dhamma, that is an infinite cause of joy, why do you enjoy being distracted by the causes of suffering? Frivolous amusements and the like. So then, when we look at distraction, when we look at excitation, as it says here, why do you enjoy being distracted by the cause of suffering, frivolous amusements, and so forth? Those things that make us excited or distracted and so forth are also here considered to be causes for suffering. So we get excited with our mind rather than physical distraction or excitation. Here it refers mainly to the mind. There are things that, of course, happen to us on a physical level, but they are temporary in the sense that the body that we have is just a temporary body. Upon death, it will be discarded, will be separated from this body. The things that we enjoy on the mental level are more long-term. But still, there are certain states of mind, distraction, excitation, and so forth, which might produce some degree of pleasure, and yet in terms of long-term effects of those states of mind, they bring about suffering. So this is the question that Shantideva asked you. Why do you enjoy being distracted by the cause for suffering, which are frivolous amusements and the like?
Pena Dunga Sayagi, Kichi Dia, Sem Dunga Sayadi, Chagores. Deva Druvia Dia, Sem Deva Druvia di, Kichi Chagores. And do Susu Mezenamaya, Sound Tamaina, Lu Deva Dan, Sem Deva Nibuti, Jitse the Mosun Chiavaina, and Sem Devati, Hajangi, and Top Cheva, Sem Magivada, Hajangi Piglia, Shu Cheva, did you with us? Lu Devi King Kazuski. Lu Devi Ken so di and Lonjo de and Lonjo Kazus and Bill Yovaina, Lu Deva to be nearby your maros. 지 딱간주 엄청 차바이나야 양고 샘라야 동가 레빙 네바요 마로스 또 상당히 아니 샘기 우지요 바나 류 대가 차기 가주스 멤버 인바이나야 미티 아니 그 기부징하니 대부징하니 대투에지 간지로 진 대투에지 연구열에서 다샘 대부 매바이나 류 차기 가주스 보존 소바 상바이나야 단단한 거랑은 배주한 시기하고 samsung samlo딘이 콜고라서라
Out of our body and mind, the mind is the most important, the most significant. When we compare our body and mind, we can see that whatever we experience in the mental level is much more weighty than what we experience on the physical level, in the sense that if we were put our mental experiences and physical experiences on a scale and see which one is more weighty, which one is more significant, whatever we experience on the mental level is much more significant than what we experience on the physical level. So, for example, it might be that physically, materialistically, you'll have a lot of enjoyments, a lot of resources, a lot of conditions that are really conducive. It doesn't mean, though, that you will experience ultimate happiness. Or if you're completely bereft of resources, if you're impoverished, does not necessarily mean that you'll be absolutely miserable. After all, there are those, for example, that have a lot of resources. They enjoy excellent conditions, and yet the mental state is so down that some people even commit suicide or on the verge of committing suicide. So we can look at those combination of body and mind and see how whatever we experience on the mental level is much more significant than the physical level.
The same dunga same magio yoya gyuso di nekap tebaina da chik ani penjo meba ta chik da dindri thon da chik same magio shujingui bi choyor dini so di ani chadam monsung ton ro momba shuchibe wangi ani chik chadam shujim kyedeya ani chadam wangi da chik ani ransom yode da kanchi magiba ani same shimba yonde to samlo ani chadam gisam den yunguyenza 이용한 더 고버속이 동안 징그레세디 소 디톤 순고레스라.
And when we look at the things that contribute to mental unhappiness, of course, there are things that affect us on a physical level. Or if we don't have money, resources, and so forth, of course, they can affect some of our mental unhappiness. But mainly, the main things that bring about mental unhappiness are anger, attachment, jealousy, competitiveness, and so forth. These are the main causes for suffering.
Tasumba gewal gilubi lelo la sumis. Gilubi nimbola beba dambatan nimbu chidar nyamsulembi sul long le sombatan bena lelo kan chanju drundi gos.
Then looking at the next type of laziness that Shantideva explains, it is laziness that is disheartened about virtue. And there are a few points in that section. We'll begin with instructions on making perseverance in the antidote to being disheartened. Then point B, how the scriptures teach the way to put the antidote to practice. And finally, point C will teach if one makes perseverance, laziness will be arrested and one will be capable of accomplishing enlightenment. First thing first, let's look at verse 16 that comes under the heading of instructions on making perseverance in the antidote to being disheartened.
That gilubi nimbola dambas, that can gewal gilubi lelos laundi, and it comes gewal gilub shibi, gewal di, and it so big tentambi gewa, and it tarbi compantabulaya. Ani munjin che telsha ta di drubalaya ani gilubas laungi ani nigyan shajan chin shasha was tang sain chigo nan chigo ta jema chego ta loyas len chego samsung ko samlo jero ta di ani tabi kompon drubalaya gilubi lelo setres ro
So when we abandon the laziness that is disheartened about virtue, it is the one that is disheartened mainly about ultimate virtue, which is the state of liberation. The one that is disheartened in a sense that you tend to procrastinate, thinking that I won't do it today, might do it tomorrow, the day after, or next week, next month, when I get old, when I retire, and so forth. So this type of laziness is an obstacle for cultivating the ultimate virtue, which is a state of liberation.
And Nibada Masuna should be Kabjilaya, and should do 2 maros, 2 maros, not the Jigdimbi charging by Naya, and the lawyer let's have enough, and Canada, Lord let's such a game you was like us, or this storage, and 2 maros. These are and Chitado, Gilubaris.
With procrastination, we think that I still have time, I'll do it tomorrow or next year, or when I get old, when I retire, and so forth. But there's no guarantee that we'll get the time when we get old to begin with. There's no guarantee that we will be able to practice tomorrow, next year, and so forth, because we will actually get time when we get older. And also, if we do get the time, what will be our ability? Our sense faculties, our physical faculties start to decline. They lose their edge, they lose their power. So even if you think that when I retire or when I get old, I will put it into practice, you will have much lesser strength to do it. This is sometimes also one thing that we think of in relation to retirement, right? So we are unable to do things that we've done before. Therefore, it's time for us to retire, to take a break from that, because we don't have the energy or the strength anymore. So if we procrastinate and not do it now, either we won't have the time to do it later on, or even if we do have the time to do it later on, it's not going to be strong enough.
Jacob Gushon the Mazuna, Deyu Mateko, that's Canada, Lolet Sasha, Canada Chetu Mare, and it's Davian so Chomba in the P. Shonlay and Roson Chill, the Takan Zamsharo, she said, Tim Maleko, and in Gan's church with us. Lunga Yison and the Nibu you come to the ya, and church Chevino, Churti, Nibu damage. Cheturas, that thing is Chitang Chan Shugas. In a Kashi, Lochembu Chawainea, Negashuchemu Chetu in the Yoros, in Anshin Lochembu Chawainea, Chetu Yora. That is what we say, and Jesuiranche Neros.
So you might be working in a certain profession for many years, and there comes a time of you to go on a pension, either because you've grown old enough, or that your physical ability is impaired, in that you might have certain situations, certain illness, a work-related accident of some sort. Then it's much better for the government to pay you a pension rather than you retaining your position. Anyway, if you think that when I get to that point, I'll be able to practice the Dhamma, well, in general, most people, when they get to that point, they have lesser ability, lesser capacity. Of course, it's just a general point. There are people that get to their pension age, retirement age, they still have a lot of physical strength, and also there are those who can still do a very good Dhamma practice when they get old. But in general, it's becoming harder.
Gilu Medam, Unsotan, Sulendani, on Chatan, Dadas in the Nyambata, Dadas in the Cherokee.
So as we're looking at verse 16, it says, without despondency, I should gather the masses of army and diligently take control of myself through equalizing self with others and exchanging self for others.
Tirtadi kar sungosnanda ani gelubi lelo maches. Ani zongju zongores. That zongju khandash zongores. Slavainus. Pigi chashi da dembi toni. Ani church vale zombachi gores. Penna ani chi the ligawe mag jaya peshada mag thabalaya nilaya chi konchen da to samalo chi thadi yabu chi mebaina ani magsala drobaina shoya nyachik chagros dinan shingi ani chi kasorta thadi angsa chichi dandani ngulaya thadi gogres yo chichi.
It says here without despondency, or you can also say without procrastination. Without procrastinating, you need to undertake joyous effort. Without being despondent, make effort. So how do you make effort? Well, first of all, you come up with a plan. You come up with a plan, and with that plan, you put it into practice. It's like going to war. If you were to go to war without a plan, you haven't made any preparations. Your ammunitions are not prepared. There is no plan for battle. It is likely that you're going to lose that war. Here, we're looking at making, first of all, preparation for our practice, making sure that our practice is going to be effective. This is what Shantideva is pointing out here. Do not be despondent. Make plans for your practice. No.
The dinalaya pigi gilu lelo pansu song di the darjin nyamji gondangchik songdos the di chedang darjin nyamji gondang di lew geba yimba teni thungyores taina di kale so patient did jagmenros kabdun khoran darjin nyamji ki lo jangdang ro saje thoni yungyo mares taina and di nangolaya pena gilu was laundi gilu lelo nyamdya ani chawangin shingi lelo da and daniel ni bi lelo set so samalo and lelu nang yungu yenza ani kabkalaya and gilu ya di samgada muda tanchin dangi chi yungu mare samsong rochik ra ani tuju sambu yo mare ani chi lega shemba yo re samsong ro yangi atindi chi dangi thu mare samsong rochik and dindi chi Tony, yeah, Gilu bread, Yunguenza, did in the Martas, Nanzo Samalo, Sanji Chomde the Imbaina, Nanzo Nashin Chichini, any Gedi Panam Contributoni, any Nyamnichin, Sanji Kombalia, and Tovaremato, Tamunin, Sanji Shavat in the Martas, and then Busin so Imbaina, and called Sanji Agi, and Rigiordas, these are Nanzu Babachin, Jovaina. Chikwares, Nyambares. Visit the needles to some Shigu Medros, the Kabdula.
Shantideva says, through equalizing self and others and exchanging self with others. This is the way that we diligently take control of ourselves. But then the way to practice equalizing and exchanging self with others is explained only later on. So Shantideva refers here to something that will come up later on in the text. So then Geshe says that in thinking of how you could also understand that with without looking first off extensively at equalizing, exchanging self with others, at times we become despondent. We shrink from the task. But also other types of laziness creep in. Laziness of being attracted to ignoble activities, or laziness of indolence. Here, this type of laziness is laziness of discouragement, in which we think that I'm not going to be able to do it. I don't have time. I have something else to do at the moment. Or how can someone like me do it? I'm not going to be able to do it. This is also considered to be a type of laziness. So one way to remedy this type of discouragement is to think that the Buddha, before having become a Buddha, has done whatever needed to be done, having taken up positive actions, having cast aside negative actions and other afflictive states of mind. And the Buddha started off as being an ordinary sentient being just like us, and yet was able to practice along the steps of the path that led to his own enlightenment. And the potential to do that is something that all sentient beings will have. Even insects have that potential to become Buddha. That being the case, why then would I not be able to do it? If I have the same potential as all sentient beings have, so Geshe says that here, when we think of equalizing self with others and exchanging self with others, we can also understand it in terms of seeing that all of us have Buddha natures, including myself. So why will I not be able to become Buddha?
Tirda pedi gyavu chushi goni dali gyavu chebatars. Revena chanju sem pekyam thomar sem sing tedi. Ro hun dachi chun simbige ani sanji tongzani ani chik ta kanji ani chok chur shubi ta gyavu seda cheba ani zongju topki chini ani tebo chimbi lam lobni ani chanju sem keba ani chik jasenyin do ching kongbala ya sheba ani chik sanji kongbala sheba samlo ani zongju topki ba tene pebanza ni dindri cheba ina ya ani chikparwa ani yungurwa sambigi ani semle ya sin to chini ani zongju kocha zonggu res.
The commentary to verse 16 says, kings conquer their enemies with the 4 types of armies. Similarly, Bodhisattvas initially lift up their minds and generate the armor-like enthusiasm free from despondency and that intends to train in the path. So when we think of, first of all, wearing the armor of joyous effort, which is the armor that the 1002 Buddhas of this time are donning. This is the type of effort that Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions take up in training along the steps of the Mahayana path, generating the mind of enlightenment, practicing the 6 perfections, the deeds of Bodhisattvas, and finally progress through the steps of the path that lead to the state of enlightenment. So if I do it, why would I not succeed? So we don the armor of joyous effort to begin with, in ensuring that we generate that strong joyous effort in which sets us up for success. I will attain the state of enlightenment, just like the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions are doing.
Sintede lamla lobala samba gilu meba kochi zongju tang jo choni gi ponso soba joru zongju tang ta chi di lamngol ya lamandi ta ani chamba de shijing nyamsu lamba thul lamba tang lusum les rongwan kyu goni dani on chawa tang ro so on tu chini cheni ta woni cheba tar andi de sunda woni cheba tar 다든 신도 냠바다 다든 신도 제고 키시 제보스
So it says, similarly, Bodhisattvas initially lift up the minds and generate the Amma-like enthusiasm, free from despondency that intends to train in the path. Then they generate the enthusiasm of application that builds up the army of the two accumulations as preparation. Also, it says at the time of the main part, they sincerely practice introspection and mindfulness. So whatever they do that through cultivating mindfulness and vigilance, or mindfulness and introspection, to the point in which the body and mind become amendable to practice. They become pliant. As it says, at the time of the main part, they sincerely practice introspection and mindfulness, and thus gain control over themselves as their body and mind become serviceable. Having done that, one should equalize and exchange self and others as explained below.
Lusum lesron cues, lusum leron the cue cone, Dani on the chalasset. That lu dan sem lesron said, and that lu lesron, sem lesron. And Yobaino, and so, Tandanganzo, Kandachi, Penangananga, Kandachi Tolini or Slandi, and Chadamo some round to pay, and Yokosorich, Shaman the Kurde or Madabi, and Chadam for Surdishan, so, and Rantogi, and it's the Riovan Shingi, and it's Missigi, that's me level Yovan Shingi, Ramang Tony, and Negachi to Yadi. Bekaburas, Chadan Gitolian, Rodage Moto. That any Lusum Leron Juvaina, and Sosogi Wangdi, Sososun Juchin, Chadan Gishan the Mashava, Timji, Yongach, Yungures, Ra.
Shantideva mentions here your body and mind becoming serviceable through. Sorry, not Shantideva. Getsa Dhammarinchen mentions at the time of the main part, they sincerely practice introspection and mindfulness, and thus gain control over themselves as their body and mind become serviceable. So the body and mind becoming serviceable could be understood in terms of, first of all, looking at our current situation. Currently, we're servant to our own afflictive states of mind. We're under the control of anger, attachment, and so forth, and therefore we don't really have freedom. We don't enjoy the liberty of being free from anger, attachment, and so forth. But when your body and mind become serviceable, in the sense that through practicing mindfulness and introspection at some point, your body and mind become serviceable, no longer you submit to your afflictive state of mind. You take control. And this is what Shantideva refers to here, as Getsa Dhammarinchen says, at the time of the main part, they sincerely practice introspection and mindfulness, and thus gain control, in which they do no longer submit to anger, attachment, and so forth, as the body and mind become serviceable.
Kanjita Lujong Chechin, Lula Jonder Chongi, and Lupilia, and the Lavaya Chitola, Lucora Jamgoya, so that's Damra Chedos, the D, and the Lules Ron, singing about the Marda in the and Javado Chavoras. Then I think Tandi Chalayang on Zugi Samdi, and she gave me Bajilia, Devaina, but the second Kashi's in Anolaya. Got a gat on the Javishan Rich. The Chidos. The consumption lay deep comdit them by now. Katus gave me Balay Shavainaya and dead to get Yungures. Ra. Tikala that sem Leron that Kudrogores. Ra.
Making our body and mind serviceable. In some sense, when we make our body serviceable, we can take up a certain exercise and make our body bend or work in a certain way, and we can sustain that posture for a while, for a few minutes, like doing a handstand and being able to even kind of do some rotations while you're still balancing yourself on your hands. We can also then, we can also bring about this serviceability of body and mind, in which your mind becomes so agile that you'd be able to go around, you can say go around the world a few times over just within a span of few seconds. Anyway, here we're looking at developing a spiritual practice by which your body and mind become at will. They become serviceable.
가시 루제데 지양에 통소스 마 대원이 자하바 리딩이 야랑 라바츠는 라무티게 딘디 이네 대상 칸다 차가 하고 왔었어.
Right.
지다니.
Well, I guess that's so someone taking up physical exercise, that person will remain unnamed. But anyway, Geshe says that kind of, it seems that kind of when they were sitting down, they were not even able to kind of bend backwards or forward. When they were trying to stand up, they couldn't do that without supporting the body on the hand. So it seems to be that kind of they were pretty lame in terms of their physical exercise. But anyway, the person is not going to be named.
And fakdun da chik sem les ron sedi then gacha gyatan ba ani kharsa ani fig diploma so kanji ani sem gi yonden di katsu sigi jondar cheba ina tuju sigi ani komba tame de page yoba di sem gi yonden is so yores ra.
Anyway, the point here is, with speaking about body and mind being made serviceable, a quality of the mind is that if you train the mind in doing a particular thing, it can be developed limitlessly. This ability to develop the mind to an utmost extent without having any limit is a quality of the mind.
The nimbo chidar nyamsulembi su long sombani is the long said so sanjigi. Sanji song gres ra long le sombani sanji nines ombu numbu sonju zamba sonum gi cho taiba asaba shindu chaka wichaba kawa thamizu nyamsulam lembe driver chawainas dagi driver chawainas zavenamaya dagi chanju khalashi kiluban mejati leda teshishaban demba song den songs.
Having looked at verse 16, we're now going to look at verse 17. That comes out of the second point in abandoning laziness, that is disheartened about virtue. Point 17, or verse 17, comes out of the heading of how the scriptures teach the way to put the antidote into practice. Now, before we look at verse 17, let's look at Gyatso Dhamma Rinpoche's text for a second. It begins with an instructions which says, do not be despondent, saying, the Buddha alone, being of very sharp faculty, achieved his aim by practicing for many countless great eons the extremely difficult trainings and accumulated infinite merits by making an effort in enthusiasm. Since I am not like this, how can I attain enlightenment?
What's this?
Lotsame.
Lotsame.
Lotsame. 맞아요. 식재디 lotsame. So verse 17 says, do not be despondent, saying, how could I become enlightened? Since the Tathagata speaks the truth, he taught also this truth thus.
Dirida, Dinyam lawyers, da Teta Maybe, Sanjita Maybe, Dag Chanju Kala Tuji, Shumni, Gilugo Mujati, Dadar Tishin Sheveni, Ani Demban Bashik Sombi, Demban Disondis, Pigitachi, and Sanjigi, then Doyanolaya, Shinchulo Sombi, Gumebi, Yi, Dendu, Romichero, She Son Shenas. Lazang Shubale, Jen Chanju Samban, the Dariantaba Jesu Lodi, Kanda Singetan, Tatan, Kidan, Jejandan, Chagadan, Chongdan, Charodan, Ubadan, Singudan, Jambudan, Shadan, Joe, Tadajan, Lanamiva Chandu Sanji and Gurnas, the Sanji and Guruina, Daming, Da, and Mir Gurshanas, that, and Socha Tuzo Piggy, and it's San Gage Gabaina, Na Mijivas, Inza, and 가르치는 연구 말에 세소리지 명주신도 속이체야 잔주 TV 종주 냠네체 냠바 그봐 이게 따지 세소이나 려당고 좀이야 땅치니 아니 잔주 TV 제등이 매준치게 제고하삼 아니 니버준고 그랬어.
Shantideva says here, do not be despondent. Do not shrink from the task thinking, how will I become enlightened? Thinking that the only one that was able to do so was the Buddha. Since I'm not like this, you might think, how could I attain enlightenment? Since the Tathagata speaks the truth, he also taught this truth, which is suitable to accept since there is no cause to speak deceptively, which is a statement that often comes in scripture, saying that since there was no reason for the Buddha to not tell the truth, then it says here, there's no cause to speak deceptively. In what manner did he teach? The answer is from the sutra requested by Subhao. Further, Bodhisattvas should practice correctly with the emphasis like this. They should think, if those that turned into lions, tigers, dogs, jackals, vultures, cranes, crows, and owls, worms, bees, flies, and mosquitoes becomes awakened in highest enlightenment, then now, while I'm a human, I need to practice the enthusiasm that achieves enlightenment even at the cost of my life. The same is also taught in the Cloud of Jewels Sutra, which means that altogether the message that Shantideva presents here is that do not be discouraged. If other living beings were taught to have the ability or the potential to become Buddhas, to attain highest enlightenment, you also have that potential. So do not shy away from your practice.
그러다 소차 참lo 심전 참lo 비기다 무슨 순전히 아니 상기론이 맞지. 라 다디 상기기 도마인데 상기기다 숑기다 개주지라도 디 상기론이 바디 컨트롤 두르레스 라운디 만주 비기 치 아니 류찬이 시기어 말was 라 치 류찬이 시바나 아니 난주 류딩 바이나 상기론지 차금도스 라 난주 류디야 고 샤타 루스음니 트바지제 모도 비기 치 들고토네 트바지제 모도 아니 셴바카야 말was 디코 가주스기 비리야 지 야부차야 베준 제바나 간점지라고 아니 뒤주 조도야지 루도야지 토도야지 차그도스 먼저 시고에 주 디레도스 이내야 상기 릭디 주 샘토 시고연자 샘디 아니 단남중간 시대 대버대 동감 문제바 임바티야 아니 소차 참말로 로르투 지규리 임바타 and diyan jigbi semgi rangshin di wesawajimato ani rangshin ya chagdam mosum gi timile leba shu deba jig and sawani ni meba inza ani sangirong res ro socha samalo sangirong ibadi di ton de drugyo res.
And when we speak about the potential to become Buddhas, in saying that all sentient beings, even insofar as insects, even the smallest insect has that suitability to become Buddha, they are suitable to become Buddhas. We don't refer to the physical attribute. In that when we look at, for example, our body, even as human beings, our body is not suitable to become Buddha in the sense that when we acquire a body such as this, it comes with an expiry date. Even if we take good care of it and try to make it better and better, it goes from bad to worse. It ages, and then it reaches its expiry date. But when we speak about all sentient beings, even as far as insects having a Buddha nature, rather than speaking of the body, we speak of the mind. So Buddha nature or Buddha lineage is posited in relation to the mind. We recognize first of the equality of all sentient beings in having the same wish to be happy and not to experience suffering. Not only sentient beings are equal in wanting to be happy and not wanting to suffer. When we look at the minds of sentient beings, we can see that the minds of sentient beings are equal in terms of having a luminous nature, right? The nature of the mind is luminosity. And the stains of anger, attachment, and so forth are not ingrained within the mind. And this is the same for all sentient beings, even insofar as small creatures, and therefore all sentient beings have a Buddha nature.
Things that should get was a the Tameba Yagi Tan Yobadi, Yagila Tamebadi, and Sam Imbanza, and Sam Yagi Tan Benkudos, Bezuchi Godos, Madonna Lulea Katu Sigi Pilea, and Chete Chevaina, Kansam Jelayata, and called Kasota, Nimba Chadrech, Moto, and Yardrech, Mevadi, Yachagata. Kazis Gurum Devani, Lord Jalhach, de Euros, that didn't have the Tandapa Choyo Marta Kalkaburos, Ra. That Kazis Lord Jalhach Devainaya, Tikavaya, Susu Ludi, and a chick may shingi Ninji Toya Pashani, and a Susu Tombainaya, and the same shoe chaya sort of kind of led with us. Did the Ditolaya Mazikansa di Titolaya Bezunchin, Tuzutamayna, and Trolla Sotis. Tell it Samia Gitana, Bezunjivana, and the Kazusugi Yagitamayna, Yagitame Droyaza, Diaguros, Ra, or Digi Castle, that's Samlaya, Sin to Chile, and Gevachevalia, and Zambakin, Zombayna, and Lelo Panturis, Ra.
If we make effort, we have the ability to go through a limitless improvement. We can improve our mind limitlessly if we make effort. If we only focus on improving our body, at some point, as the body gets older, we'll reach a higher limit. Not only will not improve, from some point, doesn't matter how much we push, there will be a decline. It will decline. So it is difficult then to expect good results if you only focus on the physical level. Not only that, as the body declines, as the body is getting older and older and declines, there will come a time in which, let alone others, will no longer find your body attractive. But even when you yourself will look at your body, you will become discouraged, you will lose heart. So rather than focusing only on our physical body, only trying to take care of the body or to improve the body, if we make effort in improving the mind, our mind can be improved limitlessly. So we can use that in order to lift up our mind, in order to become inspired. So rather than focusing on something that cannot be improved limitlessly, if we do focus on what can be improved limitlessly, the mind, we can make effort in cultivating virtue, abandon laziness, and develop those limitless qualities.
Tasumban Bema, Lelokani, Chanju Drumni Balashis, Rangadun Bebachena, and Sanjum de Nashingi, and Chanju Drumni Guris, Benazumbi Top Kena, Chanju Top Niva Sambatan. And so Susan Bezunia, Ralligros, the Chavakana Kainaya, and Susan Bezun Chavana, Chavadru to work and powder the touch me, you lose layer and Zako, and Soja Shanta Monte, Nibajiovanza, and Tom Niva Sambatan, Chanchu, Dribi, Kajela, Nandru Dungar Chetsam, Nandru Dungar, the Chatsam Mavis, Chanchu, Dribi Kalia, Kaji Chigures, Duri Jagor, Kawachegor, Kale, this the chill day in ya, Tikale di Pigi, Nandri Dumar Kilea, Durbaina, and it chat some ya pay, and it Serrig Mares, Lela Shures, Chanjuti Kacheti, Nandri Dumar, Shuji, and it Koyangores, Ribatons, maybe Jago chop, Jambi, Nechambo, so and Zebi, Serribatan. Tela Dunga Major, David Gimbi, Gavari Bos.
Then point C comes under the heading of if one makes perseverance, laziness will be arrested and one will be capable of accomplishing enlightenment. There are 4 points in that section. First off, reflecting on a way in which one will be capable of attaining enlightenment if one develops the strength of perseverance. So we said that we have the ability to become Buddhas. Just like the original Buddha, we also have Buddha potential. So if we make effort, enlightenment is achievable. The second point says it is reasonable to bear the hardships that accompany working to attain enlightenment, for they are not even a fraction of those of the lower realms suffering. So if you make effort in attaining the state of enlightenment, it is possible that you will experience hardships along the way. But then if you compare the hardships in pursuing the state of enlightenment to suffering of miserable states of existence, they're not even a fraction of the suffering of miserable states of existence. So in that sense, even if we experience hardships in pursuing the state of enlightenment, in the great scheme of things, they're nothing. So adopt this vast and spacious state of mind. Be easy about the hardships that you experience in pursuing the state of enlightenment and continue to make effort in pursuing enlightenment. Then the two remaining points in this section say as the king of doctors prescribed gentle rites for healing the great disease, it is reasonable to bear the hardships involved. The last point would be there is no suffering in that, and happiness increases. Therefore, it is reasonable to take joy in that. Let's begin with the first point, which is reflecting on a way in which one will be capable of attaining enlightenment if one develops the strength of perseverance.
Tadamu Zombi Tobgena Chanju Tob Neba Sambanis, Jambu Shabram Pumaton, Tejin Sumbu Conqueror, Tejin Sumbi Tobgena, Chanju Toga Lamitos, Chanju Toga Lamitor. Dadia Rigi Mikela, Penda Nebo Moshivi, Chanju Chuba Madana, Dagi Chanju Chumatos.
Let's read through verses 18 and 19. If they develop the strength of exertion, even those who are flies, mosquitoes, bees, and likewise worms will win the unsurpassable enlightenment which is hard to attain. Since I have been born human by race and recognize what is beneficial and what is harmful, if I do not forsake the deeds of enlightenment, why will I not attain enlightenment?
Redadi Chanju Tobalaya, Gagin Chinin Zudi Numutusum Chagores, Chanju Tobalaya, Gagin Chinin Zudi Numutusum Chagwanza, and Numutusum said, Di Pena Chabang, Mumba Mariba, the Chaba, the Dawan Soviet, Lord Didi, and Lord Semach Greves, Lavana, Lord Tentinch, Zawin Mares, Lord Shinju Lodgeres. Lo Shinju Loji by the Lo Shinju Lode, Lo Tendo, Lo Temajiki, and Togi, Lo Shinju Lodi, Samasotugares, Kanji, Sabachetugores, Tinza, Jambula Soba, Sumbula Soba, Tika, Kazit Zumbi, Togi Tuaina, and Zumbadi, Dembi Togi, Zumba said to Yadi, Chunieres. Tinza Naransu, that Mishki Yanza, Pemba, never the Moshivitone. 가르치는 편도도 가르치는 내버도 등모시비 토니 아니 잔주 쩌바 마다는 야스 잔주스 미쩌바는 주스 좀비 또 기와나 잔주 가르치는 토고 말 토고레스 야스 잡는 토고레스라
The things that are adverse to the state of enlightenment or unenlightenment are the three poisonous afflictions. They pose adverse conditions for attainment of the state of enlightenment. When anger, attachment, and ignorance arise, we can examine those states of mind and ask ourselves, are the valid states of mind? Do they accord with reality? Do they accord with what is factual? Not only anger, attachment, and ignorance do not accord with reality, they are erroneous states of mind. So when we then develop correct states of mind, the ones that do accord with the fact, we can use them in order to eliminate consciousnesses which do not accord with the fact. So why wouldn't we be able to do that? If other living beings, even as far as insects, have the potential to develop those valid cognitions and thereby eliminate or clear away, clean those consciousnesses which do not accord with the fact, why will we not be able to do that? We have the ability to understand what is helpful, what is beneficial, what is harmful, what we ought not to do. And since we have the ability to do that, why wouldn't we have the ability to become Buddhas? The commentary begins with saying, as it was taught earlier, even those that become flies, mosquitoes, bees, and likewise worms will attain the difficult to attain highest enlightenment if they generate the force of enthusiasm and build up accumulation. So this is an hypothetical statement. It's not that mosquitoes, bees, and so forth generate the power of joy itself or build up the accumulation and thereby attain the state of enlightenment. It's more like here, Geshe Dhamma says that suppose that they do build up enthusiasm, suppose that they do accumulate the collections and purify obscurations, even they would be able to attain the state of enlightenment. Of course, in their current state of existence, they're incapable of doing that, but suppose that they would, even they would be attaining the state of enlightenment.
to papa mulki de samba chaba chen chan chu bala pemba da nebi landur moshi be chan ju chu ba lande madana dagi chan chu muto chimuto never to nyamde sambar chawos.
Since it is taught like this, then someone like oneself, having been born into the special human race or the human lineage, knowing what is beneficial and has to be adopted, what harms and what has to be abandoned to attain the aim of the wish for enlightenment. If one takes up the practices of enlightenment and does not give them up, then why should one not attain enlightenment? Determine that you can definitely attain it.
Yeah.
So Matt is asking, how do we find a balance between having self-confidence in our current ability to practice while still allowing honest regret and purification about past mistakes? So nyamnen che nubadi la pobaden ke gogurwa ma jetu gresen samlo tanga gogurwa ine ngaso yan so notu tang kyun moshine dikpa shaya di nyamnen che gogurwa chensan poba tang so poba jetu ba tang gyöva kia di la te sanzan nyamdo jogi mintus gyöva de veshi kuran di lautan di shetan di jewa ina gyöva den dao chi kya wa ina sem shumba den dao chi 뽑아 맹겨야 되는 자기です. 최선 뒷냠도 냠는 간지 최고 그랬어.
지단 장고도 하더라. 배나 나라에 뽑아요. 딘디들 라이브 메스라. 이내야 배나 나로 중니 버든이 이긴 하직 장념메스. 나로 예니 먼저 들어봐야 보즈 숨져 쳐갔단 거라. 로 예니 나로 중니 버드 아니 심진 좀 데이스라. 이내 디니 고즈 얘기잖아. 다다 얘기 삼나마야 응원의 냠내 제단 다다 딘디지리 삼비기 응원의 레 삼비기 라 뽑기 해봐치 간징갈이야 뽑기 해봐치 이내이 논축 쇼디 딩문도 삼비기 상로데 용투야치 디니가 손을 용투야디 가서지 카두가 도도치 렌샤디 카보로즈레샤스 민투는 장바이나 빌레토야치 최 장바이너라 학돈도 다치 야갈키비 쇼래야 벤루 쇼도스래 this 장바 체토바이나 야지야다마 디 아니 손르진 로토야치 게디 판란 체야디 소 디톤 용도스라.
To build up your self-confidence alongside with other practices is something that requires time, and you need to be consistent in putting it into practice. Like, for example, Geshe says that while he doesn't claim to have like full self-confidence, still, when he considers his background, born into a family of nomads in Tibet, he started to learn how to read only when he reached the age of 12. Normally, in nomadic families, you reach the age of 8 and you've already been sent out with the herds to the pasture lands. And you need to spend sometimes the whole day by yourself with the animals. So it's not that you get the chance to really study or, be sent to school or, someone teaches you how to read and so on. So Geshe took it up only when he was 12. But still, then looking at what he was able to study up until now, he kind of now firmly believes that it is possible to develop the mind, to develop better and better qualities if you become persistent in your studies. So in order to develop that self-confidence that you are able to do that, it's good to have a continuous process of study, like, for example, studying the system of the great Nalanda masters. And when you think of developing the self-confidence that you have the ability to do that, it's not that you will all of a sudden gain that self-confidence as if you will read something or you will be taught something and then a lump of self-confidence will all of a sudden land in your lap. It's not going to happen like that. It's rather than being consistent with your study and practice and building it bit by bit that your self-confidence in being able to do that will gradually be built up.
only is Jambaina, and it gave us in color, the was in color. Those ratron dig, and Mantri Wadelaya, and Gavakiata, Jig was socially Yunding Tony, and a source of Overkiach, Titon Chevaning, tourism, Overkiadi, Yam the Onchosaros, Ra.
And in the process of study and practice, if we learn to develop our own process of reasoning rather than relying upon another person that will tell us what to do, it will be of help. So, for example, in terms of negativities and virtues, if we only rely upon someone else to tell us what is positive or negative, what is virtues and non-virtues, like, for example, if they instill some fear in us about cutting trees, telling us that if you cut that tree, that would be a grave negativity, that would be a great wrongdoing, there would be great suffering that will arise in the future, you might get really scared. But then, when you think about it from a different perspective, a tree is not a living being that experiences pain. I should have said, a tree is not a sentient being that experiences pain. So if you hear someone speaking about it in this way, it might cause you a bit of fright. But then if you develop your own process of reasoning, then you'll be able to distinguish much better between what is a positive action and what is a negative action, what is virtues, what is non-virtues. And the same thing also applies to the process of purification. So in the process of purification, rather than being told what you need to do, then you develop an understanding of what is virtues and what is non-virtues, what are negative actions and what are positive actions. And when you learn that, then you also develop your self-confidence in being able to purify them and thinking that I will be able to do that. I will be able to set aside my negative actions and I will be able to develop virtuous qualities. So that comes through training. Let's leave it here for now. Let's do it in English. Due to this virtue, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. May the precious Supreme Bodhisattva and not yet born arise. May that reason not incline, but increase more and more. In this land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. O God, fortune, rising cleansing yourself, please remain samsara. You hold the subduers moral way, serves as a bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Imaginat's victorious doctrine. O masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers, honoring the three jewels, protector of myself and others, your disciples, please lead now.